the executive Playbook in proud association with Hennessy XO. Each drop is an odyssey.
Affectionately known as South Africa's media elder, Dan Moyane is a staple of the local news landscape. But his best work is not only done in front of the cameras, but also around the boardroom table. So how does the young boy with modest beginnings from Soweto feel about success and the burden and the privilege that comes with it now? And has he achieved all that he dreamed of all those years ago? Let's find out. But Dan, it's such a pleasure to sit down with you, finally for an inspiring conversation, but I must say it must be very different for you to be on the other end, not asking questions this time around.
Yeah, it's not often. I'm very nervous. It's not often when you sit on the other side and then you have to be answering the questions. But I am grateful for the opportunity. I am looking forward to the conversation.
Indeed. I am too, and I mention this because I think for many young South Africans, similar in my position, we grew up listening to you. I was just mentioning that on the school drives with my father. We'd have you tuned in onto the radio. The name and the concept of Bradan became so familiar. So I must say that for many South Africans, we feel as though we are very familiar with you and that we know you. And this has probably been the inspiration behind the book that you recently penned, I Don't Want to Die Unknown. And I would think that you being a household name would certainly reflect that you are not unknown, but really have made an impact in society.
That's correct, Gugu, but the idea of the book or the inspiration of the book comes from a very deep desire since I was a boy not to die unknown, and it's inspired by events of 1969.
Yes.
With the landing on the moon, and this was all over the news. I grew up in a household where my dad used to listen to radio every evening he came back from work. So he would listen to the news, and he also brought with him the Rand Daily Mail from his boss. So I grew up exposed to news all the time, listening to radio. So one would hear the stories, and then they were talking about these people have landed on the moon, and then, I was just thinking, how? Yeah, and then I used to look at them. I used to and my mother would say, you can't see them, it's far away. I said, but how do you know they're there? That's my curious mind. But as time goes on, I reflect and I'm thinking, how sad or tragic it would be for me to have been born and existed on this planet, come and go, and only be known to my mom and dad and my immediate family. And I just don't know where that comes from. But I thought, one has to make a mark in this life. There must be a way to make a difference. There must be a way that when you are gone, people can still remember you. And at that early age, I was not clear about what it would look like, but I knew that I would not want to have been here on this earth, having been born and lived and grown up and did whatever, and then go and after your burial, that's it. It can't be.
That's an interesting point you mentioned, because so often we hear people refer to it as having a sense of a purpose, right? Fulfillment, and these ambitions that you'd like to fulfill in life. What would you say your purpose is?
The word purpose didn't exist in my lexicon when I was growing up, Even at the time, I didn't reflect it in that way. Growing up in Soweto and under apartheid, you became aware of how society was unequal as you grew older, okay? Simple example, you've got two parents who are laborers, wake up early in the morning, at 4 and 5 o'clock they are gone. And you are alone in the house, and you're handed over to a neighbor, or as you get older, you're on your own. From when I was about 10 years old, my mom gave me the key, said, no, you can look after yourself now, when I was 10 years old. So you are aware that they have to go and work, and they go and work where? My mom was a domestic worker, my father was a laborer at an Afrikaans school, Urban Liar School in Melville. So you know that he's working for the white people. So you understand, but things have to be different. So how can you make a difference? And at that time, because of apartheid, there were very limited careers open up to black South Africans. One of them was being a doctor, but then you had to get very high marks in maths and science and to be regarded one of the bright ones and stuff like that.
You did have ambitions of becoming a doctor, not necessarily a GP, but more of a pediatrician. And I'm intrigued to understand where that kind of inspiration did come from, and I guess the drive for you to further then focus your knowledge in education, building up on the curiosity which led to your love for reading.
One of my older cousins, she was a nurse. She was a matron at the Baragwanath Hospital. When I was growing up, you walked in there and you saw these men and women in white uniform, in white coats. And
sense of pride.
Sense of pride and doing stuff. And then you had the intercom as you walk down the corridors. You'll hear a voice saying, Dr. So-and-so, please report to or Sister so-and-so. And I thought, one day I should be walking down here helping people. So the inspiration or the awareness of thinking this could be the way was then. I was very young. This is in the 60s, early 60s, as we visit this place, the Baragwanath Hospital. So I could partly put or place the interest in the world of medicine at the feet of my late Auntie Tandiwe Moyane. And I could see myself in the white coat with a stethoscope walking down there and then hearing the name, Dr. Moyane, please report to the pediatric ward. I've always had a love for children. I love children.
Really?
I really love children. And I always thought, children are so innocent, beautiful, angelic, and non-judgmental and vulnerable. And if I could just, help them and stuff like that. I guess that came from the tough kind of childhood I had myself. And then in the back of the mind, I thought, I don't want other children to go through the same.
I'm intrigued by the last name that you mentioned because we know you as Ntate Moyane. But you mentioned Dr. Moyane and your aunt as well, a representative of the Moyane family, which tells us something about the environment that you grew up in, apartheid South Africa, and I guess a misspelling in your last name that took place there.
And I'm not the only South African whose name or surname has been misspelled. I've had so many stories and stuff. Yeah. When I was registered, I was born in the Union of South Africa. My birth certificate is not from the Republic. I was born in 1959. The Republic only happened later when South Africa became a republic.
Yes.
But the Department of Native Affairs existed in the Union of South Africa. The stamp on my birth certificate is the Department of Native Affairs. So when my parents...
It's crazy that we're sitting here and we acknowledge that as, I guess, the reality of back then at the time. But for someone who might have been born in 1994, perhaps that's just a far-fetched concept.
It's like, it was then, But that's a reality. So when I look at my birth certificate, my parents kept it, and I look at it, I'm thinking, this is a mark of a particular time in our history, which we should not forget. Okay, we don't have to get stuck in there, but we should not forget. So when my dad went to register me, after my birth, I was born in a home, in a house, and they had to rush me afterwards with my mom to Jabavu Clinic in Soweto. He then registered me, and then they wrote, they told, no, Daniel Tsakani, that's my Tsonga name, means be happy, and Moyane. And they wrote, so he went away, he took it. I mean, you don't ask the white man, what did you write, in those days. So he takes it, he gets home, he looks at it, it's done, So he realizes, no, man, it's an E.
Not an A.
Yeah, but I told him it's Moyane, because that's our surname. That's our surname, proper surname is Moyane. So he put an E, and even the Tsakani, normally the Tsakani, because of the anglicization of the sound, Tsakani is spelled with an E. There's a township in Ekurhuleni near Brakpan, Tsakani, it's an E at the end. That's how ordinarily even Tsonga people have come to spell Tsakani. But this guy spelled mine with an I. So my ID is Daniel Tsakani with an I, Moyane. So in my immediate family, in my home, I'm the only Moyane.
But Dan, I find it so refreshing because I guess reflecting on the story and your goals and ambitions of becoming a doctor and a pediatrician, ultimately the environment of following a man on the moon, but yet living in White City, Jabavu in Soweto, and even the misspelling of your surname really gives us some perspective about your time growing up in apartheid South Africa, where your local community and environment allowed you to dream and dream really big, but then you were struck with the reality of the country that you were living in. And this definitely comes on the back of the 1976 youth uprisings, police, of course, randomly going into people's homes, and you yourself had to then flee in order to find some safety. And I'm keen to understand how you juxtaposition the goals and ambitions you might have had on a global scale, but that your local environment, being apartheid South Africa, didn't necessarily allow for your ambitions to thrive.
We grew up in an environment of parents. My parents never went to school, so they wanted me to get educated.
Yes.
So from the home base, you are forced to get education to do better for yourself, to become better. You go to school, you meet with friends and classmates who come from similar backgrounds, where their parents didn't achieve much, and some of them might have, but they want the best for their kids. So we're all there pushing ourselves to be better. When I go to Morris Isaacson High School in 1976, I joined the debating committee. Tsietsi Mashinini was our chairman of the debating committee. And all we wanted was better knowledge, and we're having these discussions of how we can be better. Our teachers, our principal was Ntatema Tabata at the time, were pushing us to focus on getting the best out of the Bantu education system, which was limiting, but do your best, go beyond. So that was the push. Even at primary school, our teachers were pushing us to do more. That's when I joined the library, the one small Jabavu library run by a gentleman called Brajo in the 60s in our neighborhood, just to be able to read and get more knowledge. So the environment was trying to limit us. Bantu education was to make the black person in South Africa subservient.
Yes.
Prepare you for the menial roles, manual labor, and nothing else. Okay?
But you didn't allow that to influence your mindset.
The community, our parents didn't allow that. They wanted us to do more,
Yes.
at least my parents. And my friends that I met at school became friends with some of the people, also came from parents who said, no, you're going to be better than us. You're not going to allow the system to put you down. You're going to use it and try and do better. So that's why we kept on pushing and pushing for better. Hence, when the Bantu Education Department unilaterally imposes the use of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction in the early 70s, it's resisted. Okay, because now why are you doing this when we've all been studying and being taught, rather, or instructed
Yes.
in English when we are learning maths, biology, history, geography, and others? Why suddenly are you changing and there's been no consultation? So the resistance was, what is this purpose? And the purpose was very clear, that because the philosophy, the basic philosophy of Bantu education was to keep the black person in South Africa domesticated and limited, therefore no global reach and stuff like that. And we know that even then, there were many black people who speak Afrikaans, who grew up in Afrikaans. My mom was colored. She spoke Afrikaans, okay? So you've got this kind of tension, and then the resistance happens because we say, no, we want to do more. We have to achieve more. You're not going to limit us. So that is why we kept on going to do better and be better.
And you sought an opportunity in Mozambique, like many other South Africans, and that clearly did kind of shape your upbringing, your worldview, and even the opportunities that you later pursued coming back to South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, on the ground, after the student uprising of 1976, we continued to boycott classes.
Yes.
At home, my father, with his very simple language, he says, "Ni busy in shama petrol bomb and stoning cars and doing things, but in Funimetric, where I just want you to complete school because you have no future without your ending your schooling." So he was very clear. So whatever was happening in 1976, 77 around, he was very, very clear. So in 1976, I am at Morris Isaacson High School. Then the Soweto student uprising begins, and we participate. It leads into 1977, and we carry on between trying to have some education and trying to boycott classes and raids. By the way, each time we were in school, during most of 1977, without fail, the police will arrive at the school, especially Morris Isaacson High School, because it's one of the centers of resistance and protest.
And even at your home, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah. My home was raided in early 1977, in 1978 rather. But in 77, as it's building up to that, we are marching. There's one incident where I don't know what was on the mind of the South African soldier, but he had a rifle pointed at my head, behind a back toilet of one of the houses in Mufullo South. After a march, we were running away from tear gas and stuff like that. They were chasing us during a protest. And it was on my birthday, by the way. So it was the 3rd of August, 1977. And that moment was a moment that really made me realize that things are tough. And I decided
You could
to
have
listen.
died.
Yeah. And I decided to listen to my father. After that day, I said, I must finish my matric.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus now. So I started reducing my participation as an individual in some of the protest actions, not stopping participating in all of them,
Yes.
but just choosing which ones to be seen at. And then beginning of 1978, I discover the Turret Correspondence College supported by the Circuit Trust. And I enroll there. My father said, okay, fine, you found a school, you're going to enroll there. But they don't do South African matric, they do the O-levels.
Exactly.
So that's what I was doing in 1978 after that incident, because it just brought the message home to say that I could have died, and I was not ready to do that. Okay, nobody's ever ready. Sorry, Gugu, nobody's ever ready to die, but I was so young, and I still had this vision of doing something and stuff like that.
And I'm intrigued by that, Bradan, because it takes us to Bradan the man. Now in a post-apartheid South Africa, where you're working within the media fraternity, you've participated actively in the history of South Africa, and now sharing the narrative of this new integrated country as a representative of the media. And I'm keen to understand, I guess, when you reflect on your 4 decades of working within the media industry and how it is that growing up in apartheid South Africa might have shaped your thoughts, your influences, and even how you observed the emergence of this new South Africa at the 1995 Rugby World Cup, where you so actively participated in. But any similarities that you draw or lessons that you draw from that experience?
There's a collective memory of, as a people, what we remember, what we recall, but it's made up of very rich individual experiences and journeys and contributions. It's not a world of either or, it's both and. The experiences of the struggle against apartheid that we all went through, people of my generation, and the experiences of us coming into democratic South Africa are both energizing and a little bit depressing. Energizing because we had the cause that we were all fighting for, and we wanted to contribute in one way or another, no matter how small. And it's depressing now post this because of what we've seen, what political power can do.
Right.
Because when people get political power, that's actually when you see responsibility.
Exactly.
You know, if you want to test a person's level of responsibility and accountability, give them power.
Exactly.
And now we see how depressingly people have messed it up.
Precisely, and that also speaks to the role maybe that you play within the media space, right? You, myself, and many other colleagues who interact with people in positions of power to actually hold them to account. And I'm intrigued to understand your observations as someone who's witnessed these stories unfold within the South African landscape, the importance, the power, and the influence in the media in sharing this information with the broader public.
There's never been a time like this in this country where the media is supposed to be really, really fair, accurate, and challenging. We need to report fairly, and we have to be accurate, because currently, media is one of the least trusted institutions in the world, according to different indices of trust. And then, of course, we need to be questioning and asking. It doesn't mean we need to be shouting at politicians, we need to be insulting politicians. You need to say, no, but why didn't you do this? Why did you do it? We have to be asking those questions because it's our role. And then people can begin to trust us again.
I'm intrigued as well to understand how perhaps you position that with your role that you've played in corporate South Africa as well, trying to build the narrative of trust, primarily within the financial services space, as someone who's a communications professional. And I guess it takes us back to how dialogue is always where, I guess, trust can be reestablished, solutions can be sought and brought about.
When you say dialogue, Gugu, you talk about connection. Media has got 2 words that need always to be used when we describe it. It's communication and connection. Communication supposes you are open to feedback. Feedback is empowering from the person who's giving it and the person who's receiving it. If it's given with the right intention, not just feedback anyhow. When you work in corporate South Africa, as I've done, and I know myself now, I can't lie to myself. I'm not a strategist, but I can contribute. I've got my strengths. and I've understood it. And understanding them for me has meant that if you stick to your sweet spot, you do what you love and you enjoy, you in fact are expressing directly gratitude to your maker. One of the lessons I've learned that, hey, we've got brilliant people in this country. We've got people of all color, people who work hard, people who are trying to do in business, running business is not easy. I mean, small business, medium business, and I've been fortunate, lucky enough to work with some people who are really, really committed business people who know what to do, and they mean well, and they want to do the right things. We have them, and they need to be tapped into. Corporate South Africa sometimes doesn't connect well with the rest of society.
Yeah.
If it did, we would not be sitting today talking about the lack of employment equity progress in corporate South Africa. Okay, black people and women in particular,
yes,
they get to a particular level of management, then it's harder to get higher. By the way, the buzzword now is inclusivity.
Yes.
Now, what does it mean? And people say, then people come, diversity. Diversity is a given, man. Don't tell me that. South Africa has always been a diverse country. There's always been black, white, colored, Indian. There's always been disabled people. It's diverse. It's a given. What you do with it is a question. Now, that's inclusivity. And what does it mean? Inclusivity means us, all of us.
But Dan, it almost seems as though, like you say, you've found your sweet spot. And many might be able to say, well, given your experience, you've found great success. Would you resonate with that? Do you believe that you've been successful?
It's a hard question. What is success? If I look back at my 10-year-old self, my teenage self, who wanted not to die unknown, I've been successful. Because there's more people outside my immediate family circle, my friends, the people I grew up with in Soweto, who know my name. If I look at what I've achieved in terms of my work as a professional media person over the last 40 years, then I've been successful. If I look at the challenges of South Africa today and the small role one played contributing with my other buddies, my friends and comrades in 1976 at school and also as a member of the ANC in Mozambique, and I look at where we are today, then I've not been successful. There's more work to be done. South Africa today should not be compared to a Brazil. We should really be at the top of that pyramid by now, if you think about it. You can do so much in a quarter of a century. Some other countries in the world have done much more with less time.
Yeah.
Rwanda had a genocide in 1994. How many people were killed in Rwanda? Between the Hutus and the Tutsis? In 1994, when we were voting and celebrating multi-party democracy, they were killing each other in Rwanda. 27 years ago. It's the most peaceful country today. Kigali is the cleanest city in the world.
Yep.
Cleaner than Singapore. It's an African capital. In 20 odd years, its economy is growing faster than any other economy on the continent, around 6+%. You know the numbers better than I do. It's peace. You might not like maybe the system, but look at what they've done as a people. Couldn't we have just focused as a country, building and bottling up that Nelson Mandela reconciliation spirit, working together? You mentioned the Rugby World Cup. That was one of the highest points. It's a one sport which was predominantly an Afrikaner, white Afrikaner sport.
Yep.
But Mandela embraced it as a tool for us to be united. Couldn't we learn from that? It's like stop and start currently.
Yeah.
We get it there and then... Why are we doing that? When we have so much for us. We have mineral resources in this country, like nobody's business. We have beautiful natural resources. I mean, tell me of a game park that is not beautiful in South Africa. We have got young people, yourselves, who are today got more qualifications than when I was your age then.
But Dan, I'm loving the passion that you're sharing because I think it really does reflect the passion that many more South Africans do have about how we want to fix this country, how we want to do right. Previously, you mentioned a sporting event, the 1995 Rugby World Cup. I'm told that you had some great vocal talent back then. I'm not sure if singing our way out of our problems is always the solution, but there's a great sense of camaraderie that South Africans show during difficult times. And I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. What is it that we need to do as various stakeholders to make sure that we are a successful nation?
You know, connection, we have to find those dots, those right dots, and the moment that we can connect and bring together and harvest them for the good of everybody. When you're in public office, you're not there for your party. It's for the good of the public, the people. The next thing is, we need to be asking, wherever you are, what can I do? What is it I can do in my neighborhood, in my community? It's not about the size or the amount of what you do. What can you do where you are and do something that builds? South Africans, we don't just give up, but we like pointing fingers. We should stop that and say, can you just come, let me hear you, let's listen to each other and hear each other better than we've done in terms of the way forward. And find a way of communicating more openly and honestly. It's really how we make each other feel, or one another feel, that will carry us over, not what we say.
A powerful note to leave it on, Braden. I am completely enthralled by the energy that you've shown, the commitment to South Africa in various ways that you've also shown, and most importantly, going back to that young boy who was looking at the moon, trying to imagine the men who had landed on it, and you've gone back, I guess, to finding your purpose, fulfilling the mandate that you want to accomplish in life, but most importantly, not doing it in isolation, but touching the various spheres of society, community, and stakeholder groups that you get to interact with. Thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Thank you very much, Gugu. It was lovely chatting to you.
The Executive Playbook, in association with Hennessy XO, celebrating personal and business success.